can't take it. I'm just going to start the show. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, this is the show, the news. According to me, I'm Kevin Blankenberg. It's been a rough day. I unfortunately had the opportunity to listen to the Glenn Beck program this morning. I may not do that again. My head was about to explode. First of all, Glenn Beck has been an anti-Trump guy from the beginning, and has pretty much been very clear about him not liking Trump. Okay, I get all that. But he has lost his objectivity, and he even used the T word today, the treason word, with this whole Jared Kushner, Manafort, Donald Trump Jr. episode that happened over a year ago. I mean, it's been well over a year ago. And this was before the election. It was actually during the primary. It was right after the Indiana primary. So or maybe right before the Indiana primary, right around that time. First of all, at that time, Donald Trump Jr. did not work for the campaign. He was not officially a member of the campaign. He was not officially a member of any political organization. So technically, what are we going to say about that? So, the media is in a flippin'. My head's about to explode. I can't even hardly put this together in a way to make it make sense. And I've been hesitating all morning on whether or not I should even do this, because there's so much in here that wants to get out there. And apparently now Facebook will not let me simulcast. I'm sorry about that, but I'm at least on YouTube live right now. I'm going to have to work on the whole multicast thing. I know there's another program I can use to multicast to like 5 different places, which is usually what I'll do is Twitter or Periscope and a bunch of other things. And so this morning that wasn't working for some reason, and I don't know what's going on. So I usually go YouTube and Facebook, and I also do usually a Periscope or something else. So that's not working. Let's look behind us here right now. Right, this is the lawyer, and that's not a very good picture. Or that's actually a really good picture of hers. That's not the way she looks now. She looks more like that's an advertisement. But that's yeah. So actually, if I go to this other. I think this shot here is better. You can kind of see a little bit easier. But it's ridiculous what they're doing here with this. So, there's the report. I'm not going to play it, but that's like an NBC News report, I think, right there. Russia attacked. Russia attorney speaks out. And it goes through the whole thing. Moscow, Russia. The Russian lawyer who met with Donald Trump Jr. during the presidential campaign, which was actually during the primary, not during the presidential campaign, but during the primary campaign, the GOP primary, denied in an exclusive interview with NBC News that she had any connection to the Kremlin, and insists she met with President Donald Trump's son to press her client's interest in the Magnitsky Act, which is the issue with adopting Russian babies. A lot of Americans were adopting Russian kids. Not to hand over information about Hillary Clinton's campaign. I never had any damaging or sensitive information about Hillary Clinton. It was never my intention to have that. My guess is she said something about that just to get his ear. She probably lied. She's kind of a little bit of a nefarious creature. And my guess is she probably enticed him with that information to get an ear, and and Kushner and Manafort basically was leading the charge on this. That's my guess. Now, the thing that's driving me nuts this morning, I'd probably be fine if I hadn't listened to Glenn Beck. I listened to him most of the morning. I'd listened about the first half hour and was mad. And then I turned him on the way into office, and I actually got this. I actually agreed with something he said, so I thought, okay, maybe he's going to stay balanced on this issue. Sweet tea. So he was talking about the whole collusion story, and I kind of understood where he was going with that. But then he started and went down the whole road. By the end of the show, which is I caught about the last 45 minutes of the show specifically, he's gone off the deep end. And here's what really bugs me about Glenn Beck now. The only way I know to describe this is that he has gone into this sanctimonious kind of I know how to do, I'm going to be the moral compass attitude for the nation, and I'm going to tell the nation how we should be, and this is unethical, and we need to be ethical, and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I agree. We need to adhere to some ethical standards. I agree with that. The problem I have, and this is where it really starts to get edgy for me and starts to dig at me in terms, in any relationship you have, whether it's me with my viewers or whether it's people who, now politicians work for us, okay? We should be able to tell them what we think they should do because they represent us. They're our representatives. They're supposed to be our servants, not our overlords, not our masters, not those who tell us what to do, not impose taxes on us just because we live. We are not their subjects. We are sovereign human individuals. Thank you. That's what our founding principle was based on, was our individual self-governance from within, not an imposed outward law upon us. It was a governance within. We are called to be sovereign within our own beings. See how sovereign I am? And being sovereign simply means I have the right to rule. I have the right to rule my own life as long as it does not impose or impede someone else's right to rule their life. So that's the basis of what makes America, makes the United States, makes our Constitution an exceptional Constitution. That's what it is. It's that individualist foundation, not a collectivist foundation. Now, some people say, oh, that's selfishness, and the country will fall apart without that. No, it doesn't fall apart without that, because if you set people free, those are the people who don't trust humanity. They think they have to have a government imposing a charitable tax that we spread the wealth around. The wealth gets spread around because people tend to be charitable when they're free. Just the way it works. Just the way it is. And that happens through a people who are free. Well, I digress. Okay. Like I said, head's going to explode because all this stuff is just out there. And Glenn Beck for a while was touting this whole thing about him being, libertarian, and he's all about the Constitution and all about that stuff. But then he turns right around in the same breath sometimes and starts telling us how we're supposed to live, how we're supposed to do this. It's very sanctimonious, and that's the only term I know to use to describe him right now, and it's starting to drive me nuts. It's this. He tries to act humble, but he's like, it's this holier than thou. If I were president, well, what's not what we do? We do this, and that's not what we do as a country. Whenever you start to say, and you find yourself saying, you need to do this, or and I don't care if it's with your spouse, with your neighbor, with your brother, sister, mom, dad, whoever it is, with your children. Now, children are a little different story. But there's this time you don't negotiate with some kids don't. You don't negotiate with kids typically, not until they start to get older and they start to. You have to anyway. We don't impose what we think someone else should do. You need to do this, you need to do that. Not unless they are voluntarily in a position where they're asking you what they should do. Whole other story. I think I've got some kind of audio coming through this thing, and I'm going to try to get rid of it because it sounds like something munching. So we're going to go back to this, and we're going to get rid of that. There's something weird going on there. Yeah. All right, let's get rid of that, and we'll go back to this. See what's going on there. Oh, look, I'm live. Look at that. I'm going to get rid of that too, because that just does nothing but eat up my bandwidth. Okay, so yes, I've got these files, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to pull these up. Where's my longest bumper? I need a long bumper here. I'm going to try this one and see what happens.
The news that's all about the news. The news, according to me.
I'm back. Yeah, so I'm looking here. There we go. Yeah, I see it. I'm working on it. I'm over here working. I'm working really hard for all you guys. We've got, okay, let's pull up. I wonder what happens if I do that. Let's just pull up. The first thing we're going to talk about is let's talk about this. There's nothing in there. So all the pictures I saved are not going to be possible to pull up. It just kind of stinks. I had like 34 pictures I was going to show. And now they're not capable. It says there's 12 of them. That's not what I wanted to do. So let's see what we got here. We got 12 pictures. They're not playing. That's 3, 4, 5. Yeah. See, they're not playing. There's supposed to be pictures playing behind me. Oh, there's one. Number 7. Maybe they will show up. Yeah, there you go. They're kind of fast. But, I can slow them down a little bit. Yeah, so I'm going to get in here and, you guys are, this is live. This is live. This is what live is like. When you have I need some interns to run this thing. But let's go with, I don't know, where is that? It's supposed to have a setting for like how fast these go, these trigger things go. I don't see it anywhere. Yeah, it's not there. Not there. Triggers, no. Tally lights, no. BTZ, advanced, no. Don't see it anywhere. So somewhere, here we go. Slideshow settings. Transitions every 10 seconds. Let's do that. And that'll be okay. So we're going to do that. And we're going to get rid of some of these. Okay. Okay. So I don't think I can, I think this is the only way I can put myself in there unless I do, how else could I do that? See, I'd like to put myself over there, but that's not going to work. So Now that's, oh, there I am. Yeah, there I go. Yeah, so anyway. Okay. So let's just go back to this other shot because this is driving me nuts and I just can't take it. Oh, that's kind of weird. Get rid of that. So here's the whole deal. And maybe the best way to do this would be to go to this shot over here and talk a little bit about it. I have to make sure I don't run over my dog. My dog is right down here at my feet. So I'm going to swing over here and we're going to talk a little bit about this. All right. So we've got this issue here where we have, we've got basically, okay, who all do we have here? We got all the players. First of all, we got the media. They are hog wild intent on the whole Russian collusion story. And I want to talk a little bit about this because this is what upsets me most about the whole collusion thing. First of all, we have the Russians. We have WikiLeaks. And we have the DNC. We have John Podesta. We have, what else? What other leaks were there? Oh, we have Hillary Clinton, HRC's server. Okay. And the DNC in general. And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. So, what do we have here? We have a situation. We have a situation where the media continues on this thing right here. This whole thing with the Russian collusion. The Russians now apparently, and I don't know where this dot has been connected, but I heard Britt Hume say this. I heard what's his name, Glenn Beck, and several other people who are supposed to be reputable have just connected a dot that, in my opinion, doesn't connect. And I don't understand how they're going about this and how exactly what we're doing here. But this is what they're saying now, without question almost, is that the Russians definitely hacked the election. The Russians definitely, I hear words like interference, meddling, hacking, affected, or you might want to spell that with an A, depending on how you want to define it. I'll put an A on there because that's just a little different. A, affected. All right. So we got all this stuff, and what we have here is we're saying that the Russians are the ones who gave the Russians hacked the DNC and gave the information to WikiLeaks. Okay, so what we have here are the Russians. They're the ones who did the initial hacking. They are the ones who gave the information to WikiLeaks, who in turn put the information out there. They hacked the emails, okay? And they put out the emails for all of us to see. Hence, that's what affected the election. Now, if you ask anybody out there, and this is where things get a little bit troubling to me. Ask anybody out there, okay, let's go along with your little story here. Let's say that the Russians meddled in our elections. Let's say that the Russians hacked our elections. Let's say that the Russians interfered with our elections, that they affected our elections, whatever you want to say. Let's say that Donald Trump colluded with them to do so, that he himself called up Putin, and they had dinner, and they were, met on a submarine somewhere, or maybe they met on a plane on a ramp in Arizona, right across the tarmac from Loretta Lynch and Bill Clinton. So maybe they did that. Let's say they did that, and they colluded to affect the elections. How exactly give me the details on exactly what their plan was here. Because that's where the real story is. What really happened? Was it just getting dirt on Hillary? Is that what the collusion is going? They have dirt on Hillary. We're going to give you that dirt so that you can damage Hillary and she won't win the election. Excuse the poop out of me. Is that really the story we're talking about when we talk? See, they keep this ambiguous thing going called collusion, hacking, meddling, affected, treasonous. They use the word treason. This is treason. No, it's not. It's not treason. No crime was committed here. If there was a crime, it probably was the lie. If it was a lie or if it was unintended. Okay, I happen to know that when you're in big business like Donald Trump Jr. is, you're meeting with a lot of people a lot of times, and my guess is he met with this gal for about 10 minutes. I don't know how long the meeting lasted, but it probably was like a, what are you talking about? I really don't. This is a nothing meeting. It's a waste of my time. And they went on to the next thing. That would be my guess. Now, I don't know. And what's bugging me right now about Glenn Beck and some of the other commentators I'm hearing is that we are going to this whole idea that, first of all, we're drawing the conclusion here that the Russians were the ones who gave the information to WikiLeaks. Are they really? Who made that decision? I mean, Clapper? I don't trust Clapper. He's the one who lied before Congress and didn't get in trouble for it. What organization is saying, not 17 organizations, there's not 17 security organizations. That's now being refuted and finally understood that there was only 3 or 4, only because Clapper has now finally come out and admitted it, because he was getting in trouble for it. That's why he's saying. There was never anyone saying that there were 17 security organizations, intelligence organizations, saying that the Russians hacked the DNC server. Let's go back over that again. I know I've covered it before. Let's talk about it again. Guccifer is the CrowdStrike is the name of the company that did the DNC forensics. Not the FBI. The DNC will not give their server to the FBI. They won't give it to any intelligence organization. They won't give up their server. Hillary Clinton destroyed emails that were on her server prior to giving it to the FBI because they were all her private emails. Oh, it's just stuff about weddings and stuff. Well, if it's just not important, if it's just stuff about weddings and stuff, then why did you need to destroy it? And if anybody made our highly classified information accessible to hackers, guess who it was? Hillary Clinton. Yeah, that's right. It was Hillary Clinton. Because she had a private unsecured server. John Podesta and his emails. John Podesta here. We got John Podesta, JP, right here. John Podesta. So the DNC was hacked. John Podesta was hacked. Hillary Rodham Clinton had a server that was very easily hacked, and probably definitely was. They haven't determined whether or not it was because she did a whole bunch of stuff. She used something called BleachBit to go over her server. Why is this woman not in jail? Why is she not in jail? Why is Comey not in jail? Comey lied. Comey gave government documents. Now, that's a whole other story. Just a little side note here. Comey's being accused now of giving out classified information in his memos. I'm not positive that I think that we have an issue here with semantics, and I don't know. I'm just giving my opinion because this is the news according to me. So it's my opinion that classified and confidential are kind of two different things. And I think that there's some muddy water on how confidential or how classified. There's kind of a gray area there a little bit between classified and confidential. And there's some overlap. Because you can originate, if you are the FBI director, if you are the Secretary of State, you can make statements. You can type a letter that doesn't have a classified header on it because you know classified information and you are the originator of classified information. In other words, it may not be information you were given from another email. You sending an email could be classified information, even though you were the originator of that email. Does that make sense? So the FBI director can also originate classified information. In my opinion, a discussion between the FBI director and the President of the United States should be classified. If nothing else, confidential. And property of the U.S. government. So it should belong to Congress and the Oversight Committee. That's just my opinion. And I think that's the opinion of several lawyers now that are going after Comey, because they're realizing that Comey didn't give it directly to the press because he felt uncomfortable about that. He felt a queasy feeling about that. He's a queasy guy. He probably should take some more Tums. But he had a problem with that. And the problem is, it's unethical. So he gave it to a friend of his he wouldn't admit to Congress who the friend was, but supposedly it was a professor from Columbia, which is, that's a real balanced institution. So he gives the information to a professor at Columbia with the full intent of giving it to the media, to the press. What's the difference? Why just bypass? Why don't you just bypass the professor and give it directly to the press? That's what your intention was anyway. So we're going to talk about intent, Mr. Comey, and how Hillary didn't have any intent to break the law. That was intent. You were giving it to him intentionally for the purpose of giving it to the media. So does that kind of help your queasiness a little bit? It helps you get over your queasiness? How do you sleep at night? I don't get it. I don't understand that at all. So now, okay, let's say, just for the heck of it, let's say Donald Trump had the intention to go to the Russians and collude with them. He's going to collude. Exactly what was their plan? I want to know some details here. When we start talking about collusion and all this crap and what we're accusing someone of, because I hear people using the T word now, the treason word. If anybody committed treason, it was Hillary Clinton. We can look at the definitions of those words, and we can see what the law says about those words. And I'm telling you, treason did not happen here with this whole thing with Donald Trump Jr. So let's go back to the whiteboard, shall we? So we've got the Russians supposedly leaking here. And this is a point that I want to really bring up, because this is where I have a different opinion, and the information I've received is different than what they're saying. And now just everybody's just accepting it, because when you repeat a lie enough, it starts to become the truth. People start to believe you. So here's the problem. And this is also in a report. It's in a report. I've read an actual report stating that it is most likely, they are highly confident, and that's pretty big for intelligence agency to say. They are highly confident that the information from the DNC server was taken out via a hard drive, like a thumb drive, like a USB drive, taken out from the DNC and given to WikiLeaks. And that probably, again, was probably from Seth Rich, who was murdered outside his apartment. He was a known Bernie supporter. He was disenfranchised from the DNC, angry, wanted to expose what was going on with the DNC. And that's really, when we talk about the actual dirt that came out that supposedly affected the election. And here's my whole view of what happened here. This is my opinion. The election is coming up. Hillary's running against Bernie in the primary. The GOP primary had about 75 different candidates. I think there was like 16 or 17 at the beginning. It got narrowed down to about a dozen, and started dwindling down from there as time went on, down to the final three. And then, of course, as soon as Ted Cruz backs out, John Kasich is backs out. It's really, really weird. It's just really weird that he hung in there, because he won Ohio, and that's going to be, if I win Ohio, it changes the whole game. No, it didn't change anything. It didn't change anything. All it changed was he stayed in it to keep Cruz from getting any kind of strength. And that was kind of weird to me. So, apart from all that, solo cup. So here's what I think happened during that whole process. You had the DNC, and people were getting pretty excited about Bernie. Bernie's popularity was really increasing, especially among young people. The youth of the DNC, the life of the DNC, not the dinosaurs, not the people who were in the establishment. He was seen kind of as an anti-establishment, honest guy, honest as far as we know, except the fact that his wife is under investigation now. But there was this huge debacle within the DNC, and it was not exposed until, guess what? The whole WikiLeaks thing happened, and the DNC was exposed, and the WikiLeaks thing becomes apparently what how the Russians were planning to affect the election by exposing the DNC's corruption and the John Podesta emails. It was a phishing scheme. They didn't know what was going on with John Podesta. They just needed his emails. They got his emails, and they found all this stuff, so now they got dirt on him. Okay, they've never denied that the emails were not true. Apparently, all this information that was received, all the dirt that was received, is real. It's real true. It's not made up stuff. There wasn't some kind of crafting of the emails, which I think, in my opinion, of course, now there's this big thing about this email that this lady sent to, and it's damning information. Nobody has seen it yet except for MSNBC and some other reporting. I think the New York Post and NBC or something are the only, or CNN, maybe it's CNN. They haven't released the email yet because we're still working on it. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me a bit if they literally forged an email at this. They've done it before. CNN has done it. NBC has done it. They have forged stuff before. That's why Dan Rather lost his job, basically, or had to resign, or whatever it is he did, was because he forged that document. The dossier about Trump being in Russia and hiring these prostitutes to do some stuff, that was all determined to be false, and yet it's the dossier that continues to linger, that continues to be the motivating issue behind the whole Russia investigation to begin with. Now they think they've found a smoking gun because they found people in the campaign talked to Russians, because they've carried this narrative that the Russians were the ones that affected the election. Therefore, if we can find a connection between them and the Russians, now we've got them. Okay, you've got them because they did what? Give me some details, please. All I want is justice. I want justice for Hillary Clinton. Yeah, not that she's going to be president, that she's going to be in jail. I want justice for all these poop holes that think that they're above the law. That would be, if I did anything near what they did, I'd be in prison. And not that I should be if I did anything like that. That's fine. But I want justice across the board. Use my other hand because you can't see this one. Across the board. I don't think that justice should be, peeking out from her blindfold. Oh, well, you're a Clinton. Oh, well, you're a presidential candidate. Oh, well, you're so-and-so. No, justice is justice. And I think people are sick of injustice. And the entire American population, those who are not bought into the I'm only going to see what I want to see thing, I think the people who are objective and able to pull back from this whole thing, and Trump is not my guy, okay? Not the guy I would have picked for president. But he is the president, and I think he was elected fairly and freely by our system. I don't think the Russians affected a single vote in this nation. Here's what I think happened. If you want to talk about affecting the vote, the DNC. Wasserman Schultz. Debbie Wasserman Schultz. And the collusion that happened there between her and the Maxine Waters, not Maxine Waters. What was her name? The lady who worked for CNN part-time, who was also the chair of the DNC at the time, got questions from CNN about the debate and gave those questions. Talk about collusion. That's the definition of collusion. Getting the questions from CNN that are going to be on the debate and handing them to the person that's your candidate. That's collusion, okay? That's collusion to win a debate. That was colluding. That's the definition of it. They did something that affected the debate. And they affected the DNC and the votes. It didn't matter how. Bernie could have won all the normal. He could have won the popular vote within the DNC on the primaries, and still lost the primary candidacy. And in fact, the DNC basically came out and said, if we want Hillary to be the candidate, that's the way it'll be. It doesn't matter what the votes are, because they can decide it. The committee can decide it. And that's kind of the way both primaries are run. It's unfortunate that that's that. But the RNC didn't do it that way. The RNC did it fair and square. They had their. I'm sure that there was a lot of pushing and shoving about the whole thing, and the DNC and the delegates and everything that was going on there. But they actually ran it fair. The DNC had these superdelegate things that were ridiculous, and there was no way. And they were all in the pockets of the Clintons. They were part of the Clinton machine. That's why nobody showed up from the Democrat Party to vote for Hillary Clinton. That's why the votes were so low in count. People were mad. Nobody showed up to the polls. Talk to any avid Bernie supporter. The only reason they voted for Hillary was because they didn't want Trump, because they were convinced that he was a misogynist. And nobody talked about the Russian collusion. Supposedly, there was, and now I heard even Glenn Beck's talking about this. There was we knew about the Russian collusion before, during the primary. Nobody was talking about Russian collusion during the primary. In fact, the only person who was talking about rigging things was Trump, and he was scolded by the president at the time, by Barack Obama, about even coming out, by even suggesting that. And so did Hillary. Hillary came out and said the same thing. It's dangerous that you would come out and even suggest that the presidential process, that our elections would be rigged. He was scolded for that by them, and now he's being scolded for not doing anything about it after the fact, after he gets elected. That he's not tough enough on the Russians about it. The hypocrisy is so thick you can't even cut it with a knife. It's too thick. You need a chainsaw. So and that's another thing that really bothers me, is the hypocrisy on this whole thing. So, okay, so back to the board, boys. If we have the Russians, okay, colluding or giving the information to WikiLeaks about the DNC, John Podesta, Hillary Rodham Clinton's server, all this stuff is going on. So they've interfered, they've meddled, they've hacked, they've affected our elections. Really? Is that really where we're going to go with all this crap? Because, in my opinion, this is not the way it happened at all. Here's my opinion, because this is actually, the news according to me. So we're going to go back to the board here, and we're going to talk about it. Here's what I think happened. You've got the media in collusion with the DNC, the mainstream media, and I'm talking about MSN. Mainstream media, CNN, NBC. I don't think Fox was too involved with it. I don't even think the Wall Street Journal was all that affected with it. There were some other organizations that were out there that were pretty fair in their overall coverage. They weren't necessarily liking Trump, but they weren't necessarily, I would say, imbalanced in their coverage. And I'm careful to say that because typically it's difficult to distinguish sometimes between reporters and commentators. And I think the political pundits and commentators will have a bias, and that's fine as long as they're upfront about that. When you got people like Rachel Maddow who thinks that they're in the center, they're centrists and they're not biased about anything, they're just lying to themselves and the world. They're not mainstream. They're not centrist. They're left wing, and that's fine. It be that way. I don't care. But just admit it to yourself and to everybody, because we can all see it. Okay? I have a tendency to be a conservative constitutionalist. I'm a libertarian. I believe in the individual sovereignty of every man. Up front, that's where my commentator comes from. That's where I'm commentating from that perspective and from that, if you want to call it bias or inherent bias, if you want to call it that, or implicit bias. So I have that bias in my opinions when I talk about the news. However, I try to step back from that and be objective in terms of understanding both sides and all sides of the issue and where people are coming from. Because I realize that folks, this whole thing with basically with the left and the right, there are people out there that want us to be divided. That's what they want. They want us to be divided. I'm going to move this around, maybe get some better light on it, because I just don't like the light. Yeah, it's still not that great, but I can at least get to it easier. Okay. So we have these people who want us to be divided. In fact, I think George Soros wants us to be divided. I think that there's a lot of other people out there that want us to be divided. That's kind of their goal. There are even people on the left that want us to be divided. And there are people on the right that want us to be divided. I mean, it plays into their ability to control and manipulate their side, because if you can divide the nation, it's much easier to divide and conquer. All during Obama's presidency, in my opinion, he pitted people. The whole left wing of the country was pitting people against each other, and they were pitting people. They were pitting racial issues. You've got the white people against everybody else. You've got males against females. You've got the rich against the poor. You've got that are even dividing the middle class into different segments. You had income inequality, all these different inequalities, all the different things. So they use that to pit people against religions. Of course, that's the religious right, the Muslims, the Amish, I don't know, whatever. So they're pitting people against each other because they're trying to. There's power in that. When you can divide, gay and straight, you can divide, old and young, and whatever else, and you got all these different things that you're dividing people by. It becomes easier to placate some of those divisions, those what's called identity politics. Some people who identify as a white male Christian whatever, and then you pit them against everybody else or whatever other group you want to pit them against. Then you can enact certain. You can say, well, I can help you. So you're in this group and you're being discriminated against. I can help you. I can, so we're going to give you special rights or, whatever they're going to do. They make promises to those groups, and because if you identify with those groups, and really, here's where I'm at. I'm a minority. Yeah. There's only one of me. Okay. There's not more than one of me. I'm not going to be in a group with a bunch of other people because there's only one of me. All right. I'm a minority. There's only one of you. I don't care what color your skin is. I don't care what your ethnic background is, your race, your religion, whatever it is. I don't care what it is. There's only one of you. And I want to stand up for your rights as an individual. In fact, I will stand up and fight for your rights as an individual, even if I totally disagree with everything about you. Because like President John F. Kennedy said, if the rights of one individual are compromised, the rights of everyone are threatened. So we need to stand up for each other and our rights to be sovereign individuals. This is where collectivism becomes very dangerous and deadly. This is why communism has killed more people. In fact, socialism is hand in hand with communism, in my opinion. It's the next step to get there. And it becomes communism cloaked in a different kind of a wolf's clothing, or sheep's clothing, kind of wolf in sheep's clothing, whatever. You know what I'm saying? So that's why individualism is so important, because the individual and their rights need to be upheld. My rights as a poor white boy need to be upheld just as much as the rich guy down the street who has all the money in the world. I need to have the same rights in terms of justice that he has. So if he commits an injustice against me, it doesn't matter whether he's rich or not, it should be prosecutable under the law. And law shouldn't look at his status in the community, his anything. It shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be, whether or not he's different color than I am or sexual orientation or whatever it is that he's got. It shouldn't matter. Law should be the law, and it should be upheld. So that's where I kind of fall in there. It's kind of where I'm at. So I'll just leave that little soapbox where it is. Okay, so we've got the MSM, we've got the mainstream media. The media is in collusion with the DNC. They were telling themselves that Hillary was the candidate and she was going to win because the polls that they were taking of themselves, this is kind of like looking at yourself in the mirror, were indicating that HRC was the one to win. She had a 92% chance of winning. These were the odds that were given that she was going to be the winner. Okay? Unfortunately, the polls didn't reach all the people that mattered. And that's where the problem kind of came in with the whole situation here. So they're saying that because Hillary was up ahead in the polls, didn't matter. Well, so what they're basically saying then is that the disinformation, or the dirt information, I should say, it wasn't disinformation. Let's keep that in mind. Let's come wrong on camera. So what is this thing, this collusion thing? What are the details? What are we saying here? When we talk about collusion, what is the plan? There's got to be a plan. And that's what bugs me about this whole thing is we make these assumptions and we connect these stupid dots and we keep repeating that back and forth in the media, trying to convince people. And here's what I think is happening. The left is destroying themselves. The left, whether you want to be supportive of the left or not, and here's why I think this especially is because the left is now coming out with these sub-reports. All this little stirring is that the Republicans are falling apart. The Republican Party is falling apart. I don't consider myself a Republican anymore. I used to be. I don't anymore. The party has kind of left me. They're big government. They're basically the same. They're the opposite side of a coin. That's the same as the Democrats, in my opinion. But the Republican Party itself is establishment, and I'm done with them. I'm done. I see them playing the game of I need to get reelected, so I'm not going to do what's right. They're more concerned about themselves in their office. Most of the candidates out there, not all of them. And I've seen some on the Democrat side that I appreciate. I think they're statesmen. I think I differ with their opinions. There's a lot of people that are commentators right now who are, I think, going through that struggle of they were left-wing, they were Bernie supporters, whatever they were, but they have stepped back from the fray and they're looking at things objectively and saying, what do we have here? There's nothing here. We lost the election, period. And it wasn't because of Donald Trump or the Russians. It was because the DNC screwed everybody, and that's why they lost. And they put up one of the worst candidates they could possibly put up. Let's face it, Hillary Clinton was not a good candidate. If she would have been, she would have won. She did not have the ability to pull the DNC together, the Democrats together. She did not unify anybody in this nation with a vision of the future. All she could do was continue to say, it's about time for a woman to be president. That's not a reason people are going to get out of off their butts and go vote for you. I'm sorry, it's not. It's not going to work. Not when healthcare premiums are through the roof. The middle class is being gutted by premiums that are 4 times what my friends who are middle class friends. Most of my friends are middle class, lower middle class, middle class. Average people here in the middle of the state, middle of the country. Premiums were going up by about 4 times what they were. And guess what? Their deductibles were going up as well. A buddy of mine, $10,000 deductible. It's the only way he could afford his insurance. With a family of 4, actually 4 kids at home that were on his insurance. His son gets a broken toe. Costs him about $10,000. Now he's paying out $10,000 on a payment plan on top of paying for his insurance that didn't do him any good. That's the situation right there that has caused this election to happen. That's what caused them to lose and somebody like Donald Trump to be able to step in. Hate to tell you, that's the deal. So all the Russian crap means nothing. It is nothing. The Russians did not affect anything in the elections. Period. unless you want to call exposing the truth about the DNC and Hillary affecting the election, the only thing it affected was nobody showing up for the Democratic Party to vote for Hillary Rodham Clinton, who was supposed to win, hands down, and didn't. So, here's what happened. Here's my opinion. So you've got this whole collusion thing. No details on that. You got this continuing to happen. And now what you have is the mainstream media has continued to dig and dig and dig themselves into a hole. And the hole, they've got to find something, anything that they can call a smoking gun that they can prosecute. And I don't think, and now even this morning, I heard Glenn Beck talking about this was treason. What Donald Trump Jr. did was treason, and that he should go to prison for it. No, I'm sorry, it's not. There's nothing there. This isn't a crime. What he did was not a crime. And I think where the mainstream media and where the Democrats are really hurting themselves, and this is why they haven't won any of the special elections that have come up. They're still in bad shape. Their poll numbers in terms of approval are down like crazy. CNN has just completely lost their minds, and nobody watches them except for just to laugh at them. I mean, you go to CNN's website, go to CNN's YouTube channel, and the comments that are made are just ridiculous. They are done. They are done. And, of course, now they've come up with some information about, nobody's going to believe them now. Nobody's going to give them any credibility. And I hate to say it because I used to watch them all the time. I used to think they were a credible organization. They're not. They're done. And they might as well close the place up and go because they've damaged themselves too much. And if they don't think that, they think it's been somebody else that's done that to them, they've done it to themselves. They continue to dig. And in my opinion, they've dug down so far to try to find something, the hole is going to collapse on them, and they're all going to be buried. That's my metaphor. So, again, we have this issue here that is just outrageous, and there's nothing there. And in fact, that whole report by what's his name, Project Veritas. Came out with a report of the CNN reporters saying that there's nothing there, that it's just they continue to push it because it gives them some ratings. It's kind of their last-ditch effort. That's all they're doing. There's so much more about this president they could be covering that would be, in my opinion, holding his feet to the fire. And instead they're doing this. And now Glenn Beck has spent his whole morning talking about the Donald Trump Jr. email and all the stuff that's going on that they haven't even seen yet. And they kept saying, well, we haven't seen the email yet, but this is what it's reported to have said. We haven't seen it probably because it can't be verified, probably because it didn't happen. And now this lady has come out and said that some of this stuff is like, she doesn't have any ties to the Kremlin. She was a lawyer. I mean, sure, everybody and all lawyers have kind of some background tie to the government itself and government officials because they're dealing with that as they're kind of an agent of the government in terms of upholding the law and working with people with the law and the legal system. It's kind of like being a realtor. You're kind of the same way. You're working with local government at least and knowing the laws and the regulations and the things about the local ordinances and all those things. You kind of have some grounding in that area, but there's not this idea that the Russians have dirt and because they really want Donald Trump to be the president and they're so afraid of Hillary that they weren't afraid of Hillary. They didn't, and I think this is the point that Glenn Beck made today that I think I would agree with. The main point that he made that I would agree with, and I don't disagree with everything he says, but I was really upset with where he was going with this whole thing. I just think he's so blinded in his disdain for Donald Trump. And now he was accusing somebody this morning even of being a Saul Alinsky. You might as well agree with Saul Alinsky because he's basically saying this is the closest thing we could have to a revolution by electing Donald Trump and getting the establishment out. Oh, you might as well agree with Saul Alinsky. No, Donald Trump's not the one causing the chaos. It's people like Glenn Beck who continue to sow the seeds of chaos. What are you going to do, Glenn? What are you going to do? What's your plan there, Glenn? Because simply doing what you're doing is continuing to beat the drum. We need to reach out to the people on the left and talk their language and all this stuff. And it's there again. We're talking this snooty, I'm better than you, and I'm going to tell you how to do this, and we're going to come together. And all you're doing, you're in my opinion, you're compromising with the devil. I don't compromise. When people start talking compromise, I start stepping back, going, whoa, 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 because I disagree with. I don't have to change my standards and what I believe to be true just because I want to get along with you. I'll do everything I can to get along with you, but I'm not going to change my inner core beliefs, my standards, the things that I uphold to be truth. I'm not going to change that. I'm not going to do that. Now, do I agree? Do I believe that the left wants to see the hungry fed, the poor brought out of poverty, sick people taken care of? Sure, they believe in all those things. I think the people on the right do too. I think that conservatives want to see people taken care of. But I think that they have a different way of going about it than the people on the left. People on the left want the government to be the one that imposes those things to be done. People on the right want to be free to do those things, to be free to take care of people, to let the capitalist system, a true capitalist system that's not corporate, that's not crony capitalism, that's not manipulated, take care of those things. I think that people will rise up. I have more hope in my fellow man than I do in my fellow bureaucrat, because I think bureaucrats have ulterior motives. Nefarious, yes, some of them, because they want to be reelected, and that sways their opinion, that sways their motivation. People who are not elected officials will do what's right because they just do what's right. And some of them don't. That's life. We deal with those people. The capitalistic system will usually weed those people out, in my opinion. It's just my opinion, because this is the news, according to me. So I'm going to... Boy, I've just been talking for a long time here. So I think what I'm going to do is give you a little bumper, just because you're getting bored.
The news that's all about the news. The news, according to me.
So I think I've been on here for like an hour now, and I think it's time for me to go. So I appreciate you guys watching, appreciate the comments, appreciate you liking and subscribing, doing all those things. I'm Kevin Blankenberg. This is the news according to me, and we'll see what happens with this whole Kushner, Manafort, Donald Trump Jr. treason, the smoking gun, in a world where the Russians have full control of our elections. Because they told me who to vote for. They came to my house and they said, you need to vote for Jill, the Green Party candidate. Jill Stein. Yeah. Who actually did meet with the Russians. There's a picture of her having dinner with Vladimir Putin and a bunch of film directors from Russia and some other people, along with Michael Flynn, sitting at a table having dinner. Yeah. She met with them. That was collusion. Yeah, who knows what they talked about? I don't care. I don't care. They didn't tell me who to vote for. They didn't affect any voting machines. They didn't hack anything. Disinformation, information, true information, not information, whatever it is. At the end of the day, they affected no votes. So go away. Just be done with it. If you want to get somebody for lying to Congress, if you want to get somebody for lying on a form, whatever. It doesn't disqualify President Donald Trump from being President Donald Trump. Get over it. Let's get engaged with the work of working with our representatives, holding their feet to the fire, getting them to do what they were elected to do. Or not. If you don't like what they're going to do, then get engaged with stopping them from doing what they're going to petition the government, have a demonstration. I don't care. Peaceful, we're allowed to do that. We can have, according to our Constitution, we have the right to assembly. We have the right to all those things. So do it. Just don't impose or impede someone else's right to do it in the process, or to live their life, or to, whatever. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So thanks for stopping by and watching. I'm going to hit the outro button if I can find it. It's this one right here, I think. That's what I'm going to do right here.
This has been another amazing episode of The News According to Me.